Iridium. Hope everyone's doing fine today. And I've got a new guest with me, Dirk McClure. How you doing, mate?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, not bad, mate. And well, me and Dirk have been speaking for a little while now, and sort of in and ahhing what to do, what band it's gonna be, and I think we was always going to aim for either Stryper or Michael Sweet. So we sort of got both to talk about. We got this. We both got them in our possession, I believe.
Tale of
Look at
two
that.
albums.
Yeah. So we're going to talk about Reborn again and Reborn, I suppose. It's going to get confusing. I know that. So anyway, Dirk reached out to me and said, "Do you want to review the new album?" And I said, "Well, this is one thing we're going to talk about anyway. The format it's come out in, it's not easy available. You know, it's not on. I use Spotify. I've got to say, Dirk, this is my only CD I own in the whole world.
No way.
Yeah, all my records went when I was years and years ago when they went out of when I thought I weren't going to play them again. I really regret that. And then just to top it off, I got rid of all my CDs as well and did it again. So I haven't really. I mean, no, I've got two albums. I've got a White Sister one behind me and an Alter Bridge one. That is all I've got. Two records, and everything else is I just listen to, and I know it's bad because it doesn't really look after the artist as it should. But that's just the way it is. It's easy. It's I haven't got loads of money, so it's just that's it. Anyway, Dirk said to me, "Can we do that?" And I said, "Well, I'm not actually going to get the album because if I got every album I wanted to, I just wouldn't be able to live." So I wasn't planning on getting it. And Dirk generously, because he wanted to review this album with me, actually bought it for me and sent it to me. I mean, how cool is that? Thanks then, mate. I mean, I don't even have artists send me stuff. You know that, didn't you? I don't even get stuff. I get the odd link from a band that wanted me to review an album, but I never get any physical stuff. And I want loads of stuff. I want T-shirts. So anyway,
you're quite welcome. And it's, as we were talking about, it's an album that needs to be heard.
Yes.
I'm shocked that you have so few CDs, but it makes sense what you said because you do cover a lot of ground. I'm an old school guy. I still like the CDs, so I have piles and piles of them.
I mean, there was a show recently about CDs coming back. I mean, they've gone, and they're talking about them coming back again. So I mean, it's just mad, isn't it? What's next? Anyway, so I just want a quick 5-minute just talk about that, mate. So we're talking about Michael Sweet album, obviously, but we're talking about Stryper. They go hand in hand, don't they? Obviously. Tell us a little bit about how you got into the band, a bit of history about.
Sure, I will. And before I do that, I just again want to say thank you for having me on your show. And I am a fan of your show. I have listened and watched a lot of your videos, and I enjoy the reviews. I enjoy the rankings. I enjoy your discussions with other people, but what I really appreciate are your reaction videos. And when you listen to a song for the first time and you're able to take your headphones off halfway through it and really give an earnest reaction and talk about the depth of the music and the layering of the music and dissect those songs and just how it's just all about the music. That's just something that I really appreciate as someone that appreciates music myself. So really honored to be here again. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Me personally, I grew up listening to Molly Crew, I grew up in the 80s, so Def Leppard, AC/DC, the Eagles, Leonard Skinner, all CCR, all those bands. And there were also a lot of faith-based bands that were out there, not successful, and let's just be real, not very good.
Well, the same with I know they call them secular bands, but it's the same with those. There was not a lot of good ones of those as well. There was some poor bands, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, and they were different. I mean, they had a purpose, and I would even go as far to say in some cases they were anointed, if you'll excuse a churchy word. But they started on stages at churches. They didn't really start like on the Sunset Strip and didn't really pay their dues. And I was at a church camp, and the cabin leader there was telling me, what kind of songs you listen to. Well, I ran through all the bands I liked. They said, well, have you ever listened to faith-based music? They call it Christian rock. I said, well, sure. I mean, I've listened to, and I rattled off all those bands that I listened to. And I said, but I mean, really, it's okay. But I listen to that because of the message, not really because it's the best music out there. And the cabin leader said, have you ever heard of a band named Stryper? And I hadn't. And he's like, oh, Dirk, he said, there is nothing that any of those bands you just mentioned can do that these guys can't. You've got to hear them. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't believe him. I was very skeptical. So, but it piqued my interest. So the next week I go to a record store, not a Christian bookstore, a regular record store. And it was the quintessential record store experience. There was kind of a heavyweight guy wearing a Molly Crew t-shirt, and he knew a little bit about every band.
Yeah.
And I mentioned, hey, do you have any? I've heard of this band Stryper. His eyes immediately lit up. He said, oh my gosh. He's like, these guys are amazing. They're just, they're just taking the industry by storm. They've got a new record out that just came out called Soldiers Under Command. We can't keep it on the shelf. It sells out every week. So come back next Tuesday. We get our shipments on Tuesday. He said, but you're in luck. He said, I have one copy of their original EP, the 6-song Yellow and Black Attack. He's like, you are going to love it. And interestingly enough, I was giving this record store guy a lot more credibility than I was, the guy that it was all about the music, than I was the guy that it was really all about the message, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I get home, and we didn't have a tape player in the car, and so I had to wait until I got home. And I get home, I put it in my stereo, and the first song was Yellow and Black Attack. And I remember the first moment that I heard the first scream on that song, and the guitar and the drums, and then the clarity of the lyrics. You could understand the words the first time you heard them. And then that bass solo comes in at the end. That song has a really thumping bass solo, and I was like, that's it. This is unbelievable. They've been my favorite band ever since.
Yeah. I mean, to tell you the truth, I mean, I've got a lot of I can't even think what my favorite band is, but Stryper are definitely, up there for sure. Especially now. I mean, the music is just amazing. And we're obviously talking about Michael's sweet solo stuff, and his last couple of albums have been amazing. Absolutely.
Oh yeah. It's unbelievable. Yeah. And I remember when they were disbanded for about 10 years and going to a Cornerstone Music Festival. It was in 2001, basically think Woodstock, but without the drugs and the booze, and it's a lot of faith-based bands. But I mean, POD was there. I mean, there were some awesome bands there. Guardian, Stryper was not officially reunited, but they were playing a reunion show there, and they were headlining it. And Michael Sweet had just came out with his Truth album, which I think is just a masterpiece personally. And I remember as a fan feeling a little bit torn because, I thought, wow, if Stryper got back together, it'd be so great. And they've grown as musicians, and they could do great new music, which they've done, and it has exceeded even my high expectations then. But I was thinking, on the other hand, gosh, this Truth album is so good, though. I kind of want Michael to keep doing what he's doing. And I thought internally, what the dream would be if Stryper officially reunited, put out new albums, toured together, did the whole thing, but somehow Michael was able to, do his other projects on the side, find time to do them. And, the other guys were doing things on the side too. Oz and Tim are a band called Sin Dizzy. Robert did his Love Trash album. But I just thought that would be the dream. And so as a fan for the last 15 years, I've really been living the dream. It's amazing how quickly Michael can put out quality work.
Well, he doesn't just do that either, does he? Like you said, all these other things he does, George Lynch and You know, this other band he's got going with Nathan James from Inglorious, and these
Sunbomb. Have you heard the Sunbomb stuff?
Yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
I know. It is quite amazing. It is quite amazing. I mean, he must be one of the busiest people. There's a few busy musicians out there. He's definitely one of them, though. So one of the things he has done, obviously, we're going to talk about is show it again. Here we go. Bit of light on there, but there you go. So yeah, I mean, give us you're going to talk a little bit about how this album, this particular version, came about.
Yeah, and it's a really interesting story, this tale of two albums. So most Stryper fans, I say most, I think a lot, think of their music kind of in two categories. There's what's called the classic era, and that started with the Yellow and Black Attack. Soldiers Under Command was the first full album, and then it went through Against the Law. And then they had a compilation album called Can't Stop the Rock, and then they stopped, you know, for a little over 10 years. And then there is what I'd call the modern era, when they rebanded, and they started with a compilation album called Seven, and which just had a couple new songs. And then, but their first full album as a reunited Stryper was Reborn. So what had happened was, and some people know some about this that are going to be watching, have an interest, but just a little helicopter perspective, you know, for the regular person, it was an album. I think it surprised a lot of people, the sonic sound of it. You know, as we were talking about earlier, I wouldn't really consider it one of my, I didn't dislike it. I liked it, but it wasn't like in the top half of my list of Stryper albums. It was down towards the bottom. But I think, you know, we were glad to see them get together.
Yeah.
But before this, Michael had recorded all these songs as it was going to be his next solo album. And those were never released. You can hear a little bit of them. There was a 2004 movie, a low budget movie called Sting, Moment of Truth. And it's about, I don't know if you remember the pro wrestler, but he had white makeup on his face and he had little black lines and stuff. It was a movie about his life, and he played himself. Well, they had a couple of the Michael Sweet versions, the early Michael Sweet versions of the song in that movie. You can hear Reborn and you can hear Live Again. When Stryper started doing some one-off shows, Michael was negotiating with the record labels, and they decided to reband, I should say. So he pitched the idea of, well, you know, they needed to put out some material relatively quickly, they felt like, and they thought the quickest way to do that would be to re-record this first album as Stryper, and that's what they did. They did it quick. It was different than the typical Stryper sound. Arguably, probably with the exception of Against the Law, maybe they're most different. In sound wise, in terms of kind of getting out of their wheelhouse, but it's got some great songs on it. So Michael has now come back and released his version of it with his songs, which is with he had another guitar player or another bass player and another drummer. And he went back, actually added some solos to it, added some screams, added some elements, added some layering. It almost kind of reminds me of, nerds will relate to this, but it kind of reminds me a little bit of Zack Snyder's Justice League. He took this labor of love and he tweaked it and he made it just right, and he did a little bit of extra work to it and made it just perfect. So that's kind of the history lesson on this.
I mean, Michael Sweet was saying when he, you know, it was amazing how he turned up on a show for me the other day. He was saying on there that some Stryper fans are not happy that he's sort of going behind the Stryper guys' backs, if you like, and we're doing this as a Michael Sweet. You know, he should leave Reborn alone. But at the end of the day, the only people that should have been aggrieved would be the original drummer and bass guitarist who recorded it with originally. They're the ones that should, you know what I mean? They deserve this, really, don't they? More than anyone.
I agree. I agree. And it's not like we're, he's laying off the pedal on any of his Stryper work,
No.
at the expense of doing these
Exactly.
solo albums. There's, a certain rhythm, that, the market will take, with the touring will take, with each band, and they've got that figured out.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It doesn't affect anything, and the quality's there, like you said earlier, all the time.
Mm-hmm.
No matter what he brings out, if anything, it's getting better.
Yeah.
So one thing he has done on this, and this is why I've actually got a CD that you sent to me. One reason we have got this is because it's not on any of the streaming services. So there's a few bands that are doing this now, and you know what? I completely understand, because I don't think there can be any money in Spotify or any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And I hope he does release it in the end, once all the sales are out of the way, because I want this to be on this will fit. I love this album. We're going to go in depth about it soon, but I love it. I think it'll fit right in with anything I've got on my playlist,
Mm-hmm.
And to tell you the truth, the original Reborn, I was saying to you before, I've listened to that more times in the last week, thinking about doing this show with you, than I have since it came out. It's not a go-to album for me at all. Although, completely right what you said, some of the songs on it are really good, but the production is just not just that drum sound. It's very noisy. The melodies don't come through, and that's not what Stryper are about. Obviously, it's about those melodies that come through, isn't it?
They were kind of getting their feet wet, and kind of figuring things out, as producing an album the time they did Reborn. Now Kenny Lewis, the sound engineer, he's a very talented sound engineer. I mean, this is the same guy that did his Truth album. But I think they were kind of just, like I said, just getting their feet wet and figuring it out, and I know it was something that they put an emphasis on getting out as quick as possible. So I think some of that factors in there too.
And it was that time, it was you call it post-grunge period, I suppose. Grunge had gone, but you had the bands like Creed were about at that time, and I can hear slight things, the sort of Creed. I'm not saying it sounds like Creed, but you can hear some influences there from that sort of sounding sort of bands. No guitar solos, even though Creed did have guitar solos, but that sort of post-grunge stuff, lack of guitar solos, no high screaming. The high screaming from most bands went for all them years, either bands went all together or they adopted that sound sort of, and they did a little bit, especially compared to what they are. They've gone full circle now, and they've gone back. I actually look at Stryper as 3 periods. That's how I think of it. I think of the classic, then that bit where they came back with this Murder by Pride, and then I see the 4 new albums as a separate period. That's how I look at it.
That is actually a good way to look at it, because I've got to tell you, I mean, if we went down my list, and I could do that, I could tell you my personal ranking of Stryper albums. Their 4 best albums, as far as I'm concerned, are their 4 most recent full studio releases. It's got that consistency with the cover artwork, the sound. But when the first of those came out, No More Hell to Pay, that was everything that I had been hoping for as a fan from a reformed Stryper. I mean, it just was unbelievable. I agree with you. I see that perspective.
Yeah, I don't know why. It's just what I think. 3 periods. It's strange, isn't it? But I think it's just that that's my least favorite period. Put it that way. Is that the Reborn and the Murder by Pride? But
Murder by
Pride wasn't too bad. It was an improvement, but So let's get on to the artwork. Let's talk about the artwork, because the original artwork, if you can hold that up, is probably known as, could be the worst Stryper cover ever. I know people are not too keen on this cover. They can't work out what's happening. It's a very, the colours are just I mean, the colours don't even look as bad on the screen. I think it's good because it's not as
Yeah,
yellow.
yeah, they it was a concept, album there, and they're pretty big on concepts, and they even wrote a little statement here about, just kind of what they were going for about being reborn individually and collectively, and coming out of the goo and making their making their appearance. But yeah,
I'm not that bad about that cover, to tell you the truth. I think it's quite heavy. It's quite a metal cover because they're all sort of like, but I know it's known as not too good a cover. It's the colours more than anything for me. But the actual artwork, I'm not bothered about. But the new one is just, I mean, look at that. That is just, I mean, that's just something else. That's just an amazing cover. It's just completely, along with the music as well. I mean, let's just talk about the mix. I mean, that's the biggest thing about this. I mean, there isn't, if someone's putting this on and they're thinking that every song is going to be completely rearranged, that's not the case.
Yeah.
The case is there are some that have a bit different in length. I've actually written the length of the compared the original songs, and most of them, 80% of them, whatever, are the same length. So it's just either a guitar solo is going over some vocals, or the ones that usually have a longer length is a guitar solo being put in, but there is lead over some of the choruses leading out of the songs and that sort of thing, where that was lacking in the original. But like I said, if someone's thinking that this is going to be completely different, they're wrong. But the mix is where it's completely different for me. I mean, the drums. Let's just start with the drums. I mean, it's got to be the worst drum sound on a Stryper album.
Yeah, that kind of just that rattling,
like a biscuit tin or just eating some sort of tin can or something. And what that does, that noise and that echo or whatever noise it is, that affects every single instrument, because it's like just so, you just can't get it. You can't get away from that drum sound. And then even the guitars, I don't know if it's the drums affecting the guitars, but the tone isn't there either for me. On the, like, you get that amazing Stryper Michael Sweet guitar tone.
Yes.
But I think the drums are affecting that as well, and it just seems like when them chords are being struck, you're not hearing the melodies in the background. It just sounds like a noise, that original production. But now what you got, I mean, mate, what do you think of the mix on this album now?
If people haven't gathered that already, it's not a little bit better, it's a lot better. And I feel like I should back up and say, when I say that, I don't mean any disrespect to my favorite band. I think we kind of covered sort of the parameters of when they were recording this album and what they were dealing with. But Oz and Robert, they are dear personal friends of mine. I've hung out with them, I've had meals with them, I've been backstage, I've seen them sound check, I've prayed with them. They're good, genuine guys, and some of the most talented and genuine people in rock and roll. And really that goes for just their whole crew, their co-managers, Lisa and Dave, their road crew, Randy, John, Jacob, all those guys. They are such sticklers for talent, and you see that. I've gotten to take a little peek behind the curtain that not everybody gets to see, and you see when they do a sound check, they are very particular about quality. And they are going to be there until they get it right. They are going to give their fans a good show. And things happen on tour. Sometimes places don't meet the writer, and they get there and the sound system's not right, or they haven't gotten some of the things they promised, and a lot of stuff has to happen on the fly. And it's just amazing to see what they do. Anyway, I'm kind of going off a tangent here, but I just
listen. I've got to say that Michael Sweet amazes me, as in, I know that I've got a small YouTube channel that maybe I could turn a few people on to like Stryper, but the Stryper fans are the Stryper fans. I'm not going to send thousands of people to like Stryper and Michael Sweet. But I've got to say that since I've spoken to Michael, and he is an amazing person who I message him and he messages me back. I ask him to come on a live stream with me. He comes on a live stream. He just does. He's an amazing guy who just seems to have all the time in the world for the fans. And there you go.
And a busy guy, but
at the same time. At the same time.
Yeah. So anyway, I don't know where we were, but I kind of wanted to.
Yeah, no, you're totally right with there, though, mate. So what we want to do, we're going to go through each track and sort of give slight comparisons, if you like, compared to the old and the new.
Sure. Well, it starts with Open Your Eyes. And, when the original album came out, I mean, it hit you in a way, you knew this was going to be something different. And same with this. But comparative wise, the new version, one of the things you notice right away is it's grittier. I mean, it's got some teeth, and you can hear that there's a scream that's been added, and some new guitars that have been added, kind of like a little overlay, and that's a pretty consistent theme throughout this. But it took something that was, pretty good and made it a lot better.
I agree. I mean, there's like I noticed on that Open Your Eyes, there's like the dog going into one. This place is just ridiculous. There's animals everywhere. He was starting the other night anyway. I did notice on the original Open Your Eyes, there was not a guitar solo as such, but there was just a melody going over about 4 bars. On this one, there's an actual guitar solo, if you like. So yeah, and the scream, like you said, it's always good to hear a scream. So yeah, I mean that the Open Your Eyes, I've noticed is the same length. It's just it sounds, what I can work out is just the guitar solo's gone over that instead of the melody. So nothing added as far as length of song, but a guitar solo, you can't have a Michael Sweet album without a guitar solo. So there you go. And it's just brilliant. It adds so much to it. But straight away, like you said, the production, and that goes all the way through the album, obviously. We don't even have to mention that again. It's going to be, this sounds brilliant, this record.
Yes.
Absolutely sounds amazing. I think at the end we'll talk maybe about where we would put it as far as Michael Sweet solo albums.
I can do that,
but we'll get on to that.
Yeah. So you want to keep moving to the next song?
We go on to Reborn, mate.
So Reborn, in the absence of In God We Trust, the In God We Trust was an album that he dropped from this because that was something he only decided to add when it was a Stryper album, and I think that was very actually respectful to the band not included. But I love the new version of In God We Trust. It's probably my favorite song on the Stryper version of the album. But in absence of that, I would say Reborn is probably my favorite track on the album. The over dubs at the beginning, you can hear that. It had, I considered it maybe a little bit more of a funkier sound, a little more experimental. He added a guitar solo. All of these things were just great improvements, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on this. This song plus one other I'm going to mention later are my favourites on the album. But Reborn is definitely, originally as well, it was one of my favourites, but now it's got even better. I think this is the best guitar solo on the album as well. It's just amazing. I remember we put something on Facebook where he was playing it. I think he played it through a video, and I was blown away with this guitar solo. It's just amazing. I did notice, like on the verses, you can hear that, like that wah wah.
Yeah.
Coming through a little bit more, where it was lost in the production of the first one. I don't know if he's redone it or it's just he's just tweaked the sound, but I can hear things a lot, like the melodies a lot more now. But that is an amazing song. And yeah, it's quite a bit longer. It's about, I've got here about 40 odds, about a minute longer or something like that.
I did not get into comparing the lengths of the
Yes,
songs. That's interesting.
I'm not sure if it's a minute long. I might be wrong there, but the guitar solo was definitely added completely. So he must have put some more guitar solos, and it's probably quite easy to do it in the studio if you've got all the tapes. I'm not sure how it works, but to add more rhythm, I suppose you just take what's already there and add, I don't know. But that guitar solo is one of the best I think he's done. I really do. It's amazing.
Yeah.
So, okay then, mate.
Moving along, the next track is When Did I See You Cry? There's a new intro to this song that I think really added a great element. You're going to hear me recycle a few words here, but they apply. This one, when I heard it, and I listened to both with a good set of headphones, it was heavier and grittier. The vocals seemed a little bit clearer on the new version, on the Michael Sweet version. To me, it's one of those songs where you hear it and you can understand all the words the first time you hear it, just kind of like the old school first several Stryper albums. Those were my observations on that one.
Yeah, I mean, on this one there's a few songs, and like we mentioned before, the original album for me, Aim for Yourself, wasn't one of your favourite Stryper albums, and there's a few songs on here that, you know, I can take or leave. I think this is one of them, but this has been improved a lot just through production. I mean, the song itself, I'm not a huge fan of. I don't mind it, but it's not one of the strongest ones on the album, and it wasn't when I first heard the old album, and it's not now. But everything's been turned up like a notch. It's been given just because of the way it sounds. So, but yeah, that's never been one of my favorites on the album, but it's improved so much.
I think I might like When Did I See You Cry more than you did. Yeah, it was. It's. I'd probably just put it just barely in the top half of the album, or maybe somewhere towards the middle. Yeah. But yeah, that's and then, you know, you get along the road. Make You Mine is the next one. This one is a bit more similar to the Stryper version than the others. I mean, you get the different tone. You do get a new solo, which adds to, but it's more, I would say, more very subtle differences on this one. And I listen to them with a good set of headphones. I listen to them in my car. I'm old school. I still have CDs, and I listen to CDs in my car. And then I do what I call the Dirk test. I actually threw it in one time, and my midlife crisis outlet is a motorcycle. So and my Harley has a CD player. So I listened to it one time when I was on my bike, and my litmus test. One of them is, okay, is this an album that when you're driving around, get your hands out on the handlebars? Is it like listening to AC/DC or Van Halen? Is it cool to listen to on a bike? Does it make you feel like a tough guy? And I'll tell you what, it passes what Dirk calls the Harley test.
It must be good then. It must be, yeah. I actually like Make You Mine. I really like the track anyway. I originally liked it, and through everything we've said anyway about sonically the sound of the album, it's just improved it. For me, every song in here has just lifted it a little bit more. So whether I thought it was I actually like every song on the album, but obviously at different levels. I love some, and I think some songs are okay, but even the okay songs have been lifted, to good.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think that's the difference now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that song. Make Your Mind's a good track. Now the next one's interesting. There's two versions of it on the album, but we're going to talk about the proper version, if you like, I suppose.
Sure.
The original. Passion.
This is a notable song on this album for me. First of all, it's one of my favorites. It's probably right behind Reborn. I would say it is perhaps the most similar to the Stryper version of everything on here, it seemed like to me. Now, you do get all the elements with the mixing that we talked about. You can tell that the drums are cleaner on this one. This is the only song on the album that I actually prefer the Stryper version to the Michael Sweet version.
Oh, right. Okay.
And let me explain that a little bit. All the things that I liked about, and it's very subjective, different people like different things, but when the guitar solo came in and it comes over the it comes over the chorus. It just kind of, it didn't work for me personally. It seemed a little bit intrusive, and I don't think it's my personal attachment to the song, but I really do love this song. It is such a good song. It's I'll pull out a Christianese word again. I consider this an anointed song. It's a very song, and this is something that I actually do like the Stryper version a little better than the one with all the tweaks. Now I say that the last couple of times I've listened to it, the Michael Sweet version is really growing on me. So ask me again in a week and I might have a different answer.
Yeah, that's what music does though, man. You know, your favorite songs become, different songs. It's just amazing.
So if I was going to make my personal playlist, ultimate playlist of Reborn, it would be the Michael Sweet version. I would swap out Passion for the Stryper version, and then instead of having the second version of Passion at the bottom, I'd pop In God We Trust back there on the end. That would be my ultimate Reborn play.
It sounded a bit weird though, them two versions, that sound in the middle of those, because it's completely different, isn't it? That's the only thing. But I understand what you mean. But I actually prefer. I don't know what to think of the In God We Trust and the Passion. Do you know what I mean? It obviously couldn't be In God We Trust on the Michael Sweet version. But I don't know if it needed that extra version. I might have actually preferred it with the 10 tracks. I don't know. But I mean, I'm not saying it's always good to get one extra, but I don't know. I really like this version of Passion, like the original, redone by Michael Sweet. I was a bit worried when that Passion came out. When he first released the remix version?
Yeah.
I was thinking, that ain't what he's thinking of doing, is it? Like all the way through this album. And then I was like, relieved when I heard, I think he played Reborn. You could click on a link and go to hear Reborn. And I was like, oh, it's still heavy,
Yeah.
But I actually prefer, from 1 to 10, I prefer every track on the new version. I think it's because I'm so hooked up as well on production.
Yeah.
And that them drums on the old one, I just can't ignore them.
It gets in your head.
I think it's good. It was that album, it surprised me. And I don't know if I said before the show or while I was on it, I've listened to that Reborn album, the Stryper version, more in the last week than I have since it came out. And some of the songs have really surprised me that they're a lot better than what I originally thought.
I've enjoyed kind of reintroducing myself to it as well in preparation for this. Like you, it really wasn't my go-to album. It's toward the bottom of our list that we'll discuss here towards the end.
That shows you how good the albums are from Stryper, doesn't it? That it's still Okay, Live Again.
The next song, Live Again, it's got a new solo on it. This version, I'm going to parrot a few of Michael's words on this. He called it chuggier, heavier, thicker, and I completely agree with him on all three counts. You got cleaner drums, a really thick, slow groove. Derek, let's see, I want to say he was the bass player on this. Was he the bass player or the drummer?
Always awkward to get these out of the CD.
Yeah. He was the drummer. Yeah. He really just rocked on this one. And then I should also acknowledge their bass player is a guy named let's see here.
Lou
I got old man eyes, Lee.
Lou Spagnola, mate. You got Lou Spagnola.
Yeah, Lou. Yeah, I was about to break out my readers there. Thank you.
That's all right. Yeah, I mean, this song, one of my favorites on both versions, and it's definitely improved. I think Live Again is just, I really think, especially now with the soloing and the melodies and the production, I could just hear this on a new Michael Sweet or Stryper album. You know, I think the riffs in this are just, it's really heavy, one of the heaviest things on the album. And I just think it fits right in with the, you know, the new stuff. I really do. And it just goes to show you that even back then, you know, the first thoughts on this album were probably, oh, what is all that about? You know, but just shows you what a good bit of mix can do as well. You know, and I think it's a great song. Live Again is one of my favorites on the album.
Great song. Little scream added at the end. It just did some great touches there. The next one on here is If I Die. This one is really like a different song. It's I mean it's the same arrangement, it's the same song, but it has what I'd call a funkier sound. There's some similarity in the chorus, but really that's the most similar part, and then there's a little solo at the end that just really kind of puts the exclamation point on this. So it's a good one.
It's really good in it. Them solos he's put in, they don't sound out of place, you know, apart from maybe you know, which you're getting used to, the one in Passion maybe a bit too much, but it's not like they stand out and you think it sounds awkward, you know, even though they've been put on afterwards after all these years. But I think with this song, and I'm talking about the next couple afterwards as well, originally were some of my least favorites on the album. But like every song on here for me, it's just they've gained a couple of points just through those little touches that Michael Sweet's been put on. So yeah, it's good. It's the same length again. There's no extra as in, but the solos and stuff have been put in over what was originally there. So
yeah. So
the
next one is Wait for You. And here you can really tell the guitar difference and you can really tell the bass difference. Now I'd say drums, but that's kind of a pretty consistent theme all the way through the album. This one, I'm a guy that really likes the heavy stuff. This one, it's actually a little, to me, is a little more poppy than the Stryper version, but I like it. I like it better. I think they changed it up a little bit in a good way.
You're right. It's very sort of. I wrote down. It's quite a happy song, isn't it? Like as soon as it kicks in, it's quite happy. This
You're happy as my poppy.
Poppy happy. Definitely, yeah. But I think it's good. A really good improvement again. But you're right. I mean, with this sort of song that is a bit more poppy, that's probably why the cleaner sort of sound is even better. You know, it sort of brings their melodies out a little bit more. But I don't know, did he actually I don't know if you know, with the guitar, did he actually redo all the guitars? He just took the original and then remixed the sound?
I am not certain. I know that, you know, obviously what he added guitar solos to everything.
I don't think he
and then he added some layering to the guitars that wasn't there before. But I think the rest might be remixed. I think that's the actual album.
Because they sound different. They sound completely. He's got that tone on here that's completely different.
I'm not positive. I'd have to ask Michael, but boy, he's a stickler for quality, and it shows here. I mean, even this labor of love, it came out fantastic.
It did. It definitely did.
Yeah. So Rain, I'm usually not a go-to for the ballads, but I love this song. It is a beautiful song. It's similar to the Stryper version. It's a really powerful ballad-esque kind of song, maybe a little cleaner than I know it's a little cleaner than the other one, but this is interesting because there are 3 versions of this song that exists. Michael Sweet released it as a single even before, Reborn came out. And then it came out on the Stryper version of Reborn, and now it has come out on Reborn again.
What did it sound like? What did it sound like as a single? What was that like?
Probably maybe closer to the Stryper version than I think the third time was the charm on this one. I didn't go back and listen to it again. So it's been the original. So it's been a number of years, but I feel confident in saying that the version that just came out is the best version.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because Michael said that he wanted to go back. This is what he originally wanted to do. I'm not sure about that because I think that I don't know. I think over time he's thought about it. For me, I mean, he knows what he knows, but I think things like guitar solos over time, and he's thinking he wants to go back to that original sort of sound. I think he's, that's what he's probably played on his mind. Rather than, I don't know if he got to do the Michael Sweet album all the way back then and didn't do it as a Stryper album, would it be anything like this now? I don't know.
Well,
Sign of the times as well, isn't it? Like I said.
Just like I think I'll go back to my nerd comparison. I don't think Zack Snyder's Justice League that we originally would have gotten would have been as good as the 4-hour epic that we just got. And if he hadn't had a chance to really add the guitar solos, do all the tweaking, that sort of thing, it wouldn't have been, I don't think it would have been as good as what we got now. I mean, he got to really dial that thing in and and the album's better for it.
Definitely.
In my opinion.
I like that Rain as well. I think it's a great track. A really good track.
10,000 Years. There's a real funky bass on this, good pacing on the song. Michael mentioned we had like a little listening party, you fans that are on like his Patreon and this is like people that pay $7 a month, like what you pay for 1.5 cups of coffee and you get a month full of access. I kind of just did it to support the band, but they are constantly coming out with all this great content. And, they have different things where they interact with the fans, Bible studies. Well, they had a listening party where we went through each track. And one of the things that he said about this song, what was unique about it is typically his solos, he meticulously plans out. This one, he just did on the fly. And it worked as he was recording, and it worked out. So it's really kind of cool when lightning strikes like that. And it's got one of his trademark screams in there. So great song.
Yeah, I noticed that a couple of screams because they sounded brilliant. Well, his screams are just as good as they were. But I really like this song. Is it a reworking of a hymn as well?
Yeah. So the 23rd Psalm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So like, I think it's a really great song. Even if you didn't know if it was, I didn't know it was. I've been told it's a hymn. I didn't have a clue, but it just sounds like a real rocking song to me. So,
actually, I take that back. I misspoke. That's what they did on their last album, or their album before last, with the song "The Valley." This was actually the song "Amazing Grace."
Right.
They took it and made it kind of a rock song. It's the lyrics to "Amazing Grace," but then they put the emphasis on the part where they talk about when we've been there 10,000 years, and the song is 10,000 years.
Oh, cool. Yeah, because I noticed the credits go to the original plus Michael Sweet. If you're doing a cover version, you wouldn't get the songwriting credits. So it's really reworked, if you like.
Yeah.
I really like this song. I think it's a really strong closer. We've gone the 1 to 10. Obviously, on the 11th track, like you said earlier on, you get "In God We Trust" or IGWT on the Reborn, and you get the Passion remix on this. Like I said, I mean, I could take either. I actually preferred the just going back to the original, or the "In God We Trust" on Reborn. I actually preferred the "In God We Trust" version, the original version.
Oh, really?
Yeah, only
the
because
heavier version.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I prefer it's just I'm such a stickler for the sound of an album, and even though that was too sweet, the production on "In God We Trust," Reborn was literally the other way, and it was too rough. And I don't know if I could hear the "In God We Trust" Reborn version with good production, I might change my mind.
Well, I tell you what, if you ever get to see them live, they play the IGWT version. They play the heavy version live. And if you hear it live, you might change your mind.
Well, they're going to be doing every album, apparently, aren't they? And recording it in Spirit House. So if they do "In God We Trust," I think that will take, and I said it to Michael the other day, I think that's going to that'd be one of the albums that really will be good, because the whole album, because it just will have that rawness about it.
I did catch, as we mentioned, we discussed earlier, I did catch most of your roundtable discussion about the best album of 1988 that Michael joined. And they talked about something that I had already been thinking, and that was how much I would love to see the In God We Trust album get the, Reborn Again treatment, not by Michael Sweet, but by Stryper, to have
Definitely.
Stryper go in and re-record that and kind of, get,
For sure.
I think there's some songs in there that could be.
Even though they done even The Devil Believes, which was great, the Spirit House one, but it sounded so great, the album, that it was, even though they did it great in Spirit House, I'm thinking, all I really want to hear is the ones that really need it.
Yeah.
In God We Trust. Maybe Soldiers Under Command, even though I think the production was good for the time.
Yes.
That would benefit a little bit, and Murder by Pride would benefit as well.
And you've heard some of those songs they re-recorded them on an album called Second Coming, which for me personally has kind of become my definitive versions of those songs. They
definitely.
Just really, they just really came out fantastic. So last song on the album, Passion, the remix version. I think when you have a bonus track, you look at it that way, just as a bonus track. It's something that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. Very similar to you, I prefer what you call the proper version that we get midway through the album. At first I was pretty ho-hum about it. It's grown on me a little bit.
I think ballads in general, I prefer ballads that go somewhere and build and electric guitars become part of it, and it maybe then go quiet again at the end. I like ballads like that are more powerful, I suppose. And this is like the toned down version, which is fine. Like you said, it is a bonus track. I think he probably felt he had to put something on it in place of IGWT, probably. But overall, I mean, your assessment, mate, I love it. I think it just, I'm going to tell you where I think it would be placed in a minute, but
I will. I'm going to do the same thing. If people are kind of, should I buy this? Should I not buy? I would say buy it. Whether you're a vinyl person or a CD person, I'd say get it while you still can. It's it is
massive
really
improvement,
strong contributor to Michael Sweet's very strong catalog.
I agree. I mean, as far as where I would put it, because we still talk it, even though the production is the mix is so much better, song wise, I would, I love the last two Michael Sweet albums. 10 and why can't I think of the other one? Was it One Sided War? Or was that the one before?
Yes, One Sided War was before 10, and then before that was I'm Not Your Suicide.
See, I'm Not Your Suicide was also a very strong album. So I mean, I would put this very close to, I'm Not Your Suicide. I think, maybe just behind it, because those last three albums have been so strong. But I prefer it, and I know a lot of Michael Sweet fans really like his early solo stuff. But this has got a bit more grit on it for me. So I'd actually put it just behind the last three Michael Sweet albums myself.
No, that's a respectable spot. And I'm about in the same place as you. I've got it, I've got it fifth. My favorite is 10. Of the 10 Michael Sweet albums, my favorite is 10, followed by Truth. And then some will consider this an unusual choice, but I'd say Him, which was his worship album. That was just an amazing album to me. Then One Sided War, and I would put Reborn Again actually fifth, followed by I'm Not Your Suicide, his 1994 self-titled album, then Real, then Touched, then a little compilation he put together called Unstriped, the post-Stryper sessions. That would be my personal ranking of Michael Sweet albums. And the Reborn Again is in the top half of that, unlike, ranking of Stryper albums, where I would have the original Stryper version
Yeah.
towards the bottom.
Oh man, I'm glad. Well, we did definitely both agree. So we both went away separately. We listened to this separately. We didn't get together what we thought. So yeah, so unanimous there, mate. And I think that what I hear about people on the social media platforms as well, they're loving it. And a lot of people that listen to that version, but when he played it, like you said, on their Patreon,
yes,
they got it because of that. So
yeah,
I'm glad he did that, because I've heard a lot of people saying, "Oh, I don't know," and then they listened to him play it, and they was like, "Yes, that is so different."
Yeah, and they were there. We could see them. We got kind of some insights about the album and about each of the songs and what went into it. Yeah. I might as well. I know this isn't a ranking thing, but I might as well motor through my personal ranking of the Stryper albums. My favorite is Even the Devil Believes, followed by No More Hell to Pay, Goddamn Evil, Fallen. Those are the four original or four most current studio albums, followed by To Hell with the Devil, and then Soldiers Under Command. Now, To Hell with the Devil and Soldiers Under Command, it's kind of like Star Wars and The Empire Strikes Back. I go back and forth about which one I like better, but To Hell with the Devil, it's a special album to me. I've got the RIAA award, up on my wall in my office back there. It's just an amazing album. And then let's see, after Soldiers Under Command, Against the Law, The Yellow and Black Attack, Murder by Pride, Reborn, and then In God We Trust would be the Stryper album that I love the least.
Yeah. I mean, it was quite funny the other day seeing people talking about it before Michael came on. I'm glad no one said anything negative about it, because that would have been, well, it would have been funny actually, because not everyone loves everything, do they? That's the thing. That's the thing. We've all got opinions, so it definitely does. So we're both saying anyone who doubts getting it, and I don't know if he's still, I take it it's still available. He's got some sending more copies out.
I believe I think he burned through all his autograph versions, but I think you can get a regular version of it.
As well. Yeah, thanks for that as well, Dirk. Look, autographed, obviously.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with where it's autographed, unlike some people saying he should have autographed the front. It's just ridiculous. Some people are never happy. He didn't even have to autograph them. But there you go. It's there. So,
everything he does is, somebody finds something wrong with.
I honestly don't know how he puts up with it. But there you go.
But you try to make everybody happy. Nobody's going to like it. So
exactly, mate. Exactly.
You just got to be you. Just be you. And I think he should just be him, and Stryper should just be Stryper, and Lee should just be Lee. And I think we'll get along fine.
You never change me. I'll always be the same. But there you go. I'm too old in the tooth now, mate. Listen, Dirk, it's been a pleasure, and I hope you're going to come on again, and we'll talk about other stuff, either Stryper related or Michael Sweet or anything else you want to talk about. We'll have some stuff in the pipeline.
It's really been an honor. We've bounced some messages back and forth. This is the first time we've spoken face to face, and I do enjoy your show, and it's really been a pleasure to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on, mate, and I'll see you next time.
All right, take care.